What's up guys, welcome to Tactical Edge Hobbies. My name is Matt and in this video today I'm going to show you guys how to change the nozzle in your Shark or Black Hornet XTP. So it's very simple, but there's a couple tricky things here and there when it comes to the fire select that's on these, and I'll show you guys how to do it. So let's get straight into it. Alright guys, so I've got my Shark here. You can see we have our fire select here that we have to deal with, but first of all we've got to take the slide off, and what we're going to do, remove the magazine, push this little button, or this little pin that's out. Now it's important that you push the pin that's next to the fire select and not this pin, which is completely not for taking the slide off, it's just that pin there. So if it's a little bit stiff, you can get something to help you push it through, whether it's a pen or a screwdriver or a pin punch or just anything that will do it. So basically, yeah, get that pin out. You can't go all the way, you can only go to there because it does have a little stopper. If you try and hammer it through, you're just going to break it. Once it's out like that, pull the slide back and then forward and it'll come off. That's so you can set the hammer down and it won't catch on the slide. So we don't need the lower, we can set that aside. We only need to deal with the slide. Take the outer barrel and the recoil spring guide out, and now we have our slide and nozzle that we have to get to. So what we need is a Phillips head screwdriver, because we need to take this screw out that's there. Now this screw, it's screwed into the iron sight, the rear sight, but we also have a couple other tricky things like this fire select here that we've got to deal with, and there's another piece called a lock plate inside, and our other little firing select fire mechanism which has a spring on it. Alright, so first step, we're going to take the screw out that's holding it all in. It's better to have it sitting in the full auto mode because there's less tension on a certain spring that's in there. So take a screw out. There we go, that's out. Now it's a little bit different, the back doesn't come apart. This back piece doesn't come off like the XTP, just the internal piece actually comes out. Now it does require a little bit of wiggling to do, but something that you've got to watch for. If I can get it to focus for you guys, just down in here, that little bugger right next to the nozzle. I don't know if you can pick that up, but that's our little spring. Like the XTP has it sitting on top. This one actually has it sitting in the side. So it's better to try and grab that little bugger first. I don't want the spring or this little piece to go flying, so just pull it out. Drop it in my hand. So that's the little, if you can pick that up. Tiny little piece. And our spring's in there as well. Might be able to get it. But, yep, there we go. So there's that spring. A little bit hard, but trust me, it's there. Alright, so now that that spring's out of the way, we still have to continue getting this whole piece out. Now getting the fire select out, as for me, it just fell out as we're pulling it off. That's good. I'll show you guys how to put it back in. But that's going to be something that's going to get in your way. But you've also got a little spring right in here. Now you guys will see it when you guys pull it apart, but there is a little spring in there that you have to watch out for as you pull it apart. If that goes flying, I mean, they can get pretty hard to find. But slowly pull it out. Watch for that spring that's on this piece. There's the lock plate that I mentioned. And our spring is a little bit caught. But there's our little fire select arm. and our spring's still in the carriage. Right there. Okay. Make sure we don't lose any of those. Now pretty much all the tension's gone. We've just got our nozzle and our blowback housing. It will just come out like that because all the springs are out. So now we've got our empty slide. This piece also just fell out. That's from the slide, which just sits inside there. The nozzle blowback housing, there's no spring tension on it because the springs come out, but what we do have is a couple of screws on the side. Alright, so we've got to get these screws out. Now, a little handy trick that one of our techs, Michael, showed me is that if you pull the nozzle all the way forward and just hold it there and undo these screws, it'll help them actually wind out. If you don't do this, then they sit there just spinning. So yeah, just hold that nozzle forward. These screws will wind out. They're only very, very short screws. So again, make sure it's forward. Undo the screws. See that one just spinning a little bit. So there we go. So basically, they just need to bite the thread and thread out. They're there to stop this from coming forward. All right. So now that they're out, this can just slide straight out. There's nothing special about angling it in. It literally just slides in and out. That's what the screws are for. So we slide our nozzle out, get my new nozzle. I need to put some lubrication in there. And just get some in there. Make sure our little rubber cup is also lubricated. Can just, that also will spin, so you can just literally rub it in, get our new nozzle. And now you want to make sure that, so you've got essentially, that is the top, or the bit that sits where inside the slide. You want to have it so that where the side that you can see the little rubber cup, you get your nozzle with the little pusher piece, that's going to be at the bottom as well with it. Okay, it's very important that you put this in the right way, otherwise you won't get it in. All right, and then you just slide it back and forward, work that lubrication in, good as gold. So now we're ready to put this back into the slide. Now there's a few tricks that we can do to help us. Don't forget your screws, otherwise your nozzle will come flying out. Oh, once they're in, nozzle won't come out. Cool. Now we're ready to put it back into our slide. The trick to this is essentially we've got to put this in, but we've also got to put our little slide arm in. All right, but there is a hole on one side for this tiny little spring. Basically put the spring in there, get this, and we've got to sort of angle it in as we drop it in. And then just fit it in like that. If the spring is not like centered, or if it's on a bit of an angle, you can just get a screwdriver in there to straighten it out. So that's our little select arm in place. The next thing we need is our lock plate, and we just drop that in there like that. It's very important with the lock plate. It's going to be hard to show you, but this little tip on the lock plate, it actually needs to sit inside there. So if you have it resting on top and you crank this down, you'll bend and break that arm. So it needs to sit like inside it. So you put it in a bit of an angle like that and then drop it down. So it looks like that. It might be kind of hard to tell, but just make sure you put that lock plate in at an angle so that when you do crank it down for the screw, with the screw, it doesn't bend or break it. So we can grab our screw and we can loosely put it in. Alright, so you only want to screw in this little screw just until it just starts. You don't want to crank it all the way because we need the lock plate to be a little bit loose. And the reason being is we get our fire select and we need to put it in the side while the lock plate's loose. Because when the lock plate gets screwed in, that's what's holding this in place. Now there's a specific way this needs to go, and I'll try and show you with the contrast of my hand. Right, this way. The bottom side of, this is really hard. Now the bottom side of the little fire select has a little bit of a lip. Not sure if you can see that, but it has a bit of a lip on there. That's the bit that has to lock into the lock plate. Now on the side here, you can see this piece right there. That's our lock plate. That's where the lip has to sit into. So when this is loose, you just push that little lock plate up like that, so that we can literally just drop the fire select in, and then we push the lock plate down and into it like that. Right, so then that is in place. Now what we can do as a test is tighten up the screw. Alright, so now our screw is nice and tight, our fire select is in place. Now just make sure that you put it in that way with the big tail piece at the back, and we should be able to click it between the two without anything flying out. Alright, if it gets a bit jammy and it doesn't want to go all the way into semi mode, it could be that the lock plate isn't sitting in properly. You may have put that piece upside down, or the lock arm could be a bit bent. Alright, so just be very careful when you're putting that piece in. Alright, now the next step is we've got to get our little spring and a little plastic spring guide, which is quite hard to see. Our plastic spring guide into place. Now the easiest way to do that is afterwards. Okay, if you're doing it as you're putting this in, it gets quite hard. Trust me, I tried. So what we can do is just loosen our back screw just a little bit so we can lift the front of the muzzle up inside it. So we want to lift it up so we can get the spring in. Alright, so make sure that's got plenty of movement. Alright, lift this up. We can drop our spring down, and it's going to be very hard to show you. Get it to focus. What side was it? Down on this side. Oh, focus on the wrong part. There we go. Down on this side, there's like a little hole just for where the spring's got to go. Now, it'd be much easier for you guys to see it, but that's where the spring has to go, and then the follower piece goes in afterwards. So I'll just drop this down in here. That's it, just dropping down. Now our follower piece, it has to sit like that inside it. All right, so if you put it in so the little L shape is facing to the open part of the slide, you've put it in wrong. That way it's got to go in and sit inside the little nook that's in there. Now it can be a little bit difficult. If you've got patience, you'll nail this. All right, so we just got to drop it into the spring part itself. And then basically we have to drop it down into a little nook that's in there. Now this is where a flathead screwdriver is going to be handy, because you need something small to sort of guide it in, making sure that this nozzle's up gives you a little bit more space to move. But once that's sitting in place, just push the nozzle back down, screw the screw back in. All right. So I'll sit here and try and get this in. And if you did what I just did, I compressed it, let go, and launched the spring. So be careful, guys. That's the trickiest part of this whole exercise, is getting this spring back into place. And just like that, it's sitting in there, so I don't know if I can get you to see it, but right in there, it's sitting in place. Okay, nozzle's back down, and all we need to do is do the screw up, making sure our lock arm in here is still sitting where it needs to be, because if I crank this up, I'll break it. Doing it up, it does screw into the top sight, so if you really over crank it, then you'll damage this. Now the only thing that I did forget to put in was this piece, but all it does is just, you got to put it in from the inside and it just sits in place. All right. Next step, outer barrel, recoil spring, lower, pin in, done. All right, just like that, guys. Thanks for watching this video, guys. Now remember, if you have any questions or concerns, drop a comment down below. Like the video, and if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to our Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, all of that. Remember to be safe, and I'll see you guys at the next Tech Talk.